Three creative ways to raise your energy. Some people have a lot of internal drive and seem to be motivated all the time. Other people struggle with their energy and enthusiasm levels, and it becomes more difficult for these people to really get the most out of their days. Even the most driven person can experience down times, and it is important to know how to pull yourself out of these kind of ruts. Here are three powerful techniques that you can use to raise your energy and lift your spirits when you feel a lack of motivation. 1. Audio immersion. This is a technique that I have seen a number of people use in a variety of ways. The general idea is to combine inspirational music with some form of physical movement. As an example, you might want to find a song that really makes you come alive, a song that you like to sing along with. Turn up the volume a little. Then, as the song is playing, grab a pen and paper and begin writing down powerful statements to yourself. You might write words like, I am energized. I have supreme confidence. I am incredibly productive. I have undying power, or any other statements that resonate with you. You can also shout these sayings out loud, but I prefer the pen and paper method because you can't always shout out loud, especially if other people are around you. This method is a surefire way to increase your energy and motivation levels. 2. Positive and negative drivers. This technique involves analyzing very personal things about yourself that impact your emotions. The idea here is to list as many things as you can think of that cause you to feel driven. For example, you might have a goal of running a marathon, but you have not had the drive or motivation to go on a run. You would rather lie on the couch. In order to get yourself off the couch, you would start by listing all of the positive things that would result if you were to go for a run. This might include things like increased energy, happiness because you're proud of yourself, excitement of moving towards your marathon goal, and of course, contentment that you are preserving your health. At the same time, you would then list all of your negative motivators, things that might occur if you don't commit to your running goals. So this might include things like self-letdown for not sticking to your objectives, reduced energy, or even proving your doubters to be right. And this can be a huge one for people. When you combine the positive drivers with the negative drivers, your energy and motivation levels can't help but to be impacted and improved upon. 3. Comedy and movement. This is a unique technique that I use all the time, and when I show other people, they really enjoy it. The idea is to combine the good feelings of comedy and laughter with the increased energy brought about by body movement. There is no right way to do this, so I will just illustrate with an example. Go to YouTube and search for a comedian or clips from a funny show that always make you laugh. Even if your mood is really low at this point, simply watch the clip with no expectations for instant mood enhancement. You are simply observing at this point. Watch the clip twice if you need to. Then, search for a second comedy clip and simply cue it up, but don't play it yet. After the first clip is finished, stand up, move your chair out of the way, and do some kind of fast body movement. This can be anything that gets your heart pumping, like leg raises, jumping jacks, shadow boxing, etc. Do this for at least 1 minute. Once your mini exercise session is done, return to your computer and watch the second comedy clip. You will find your energy levels rising, and you will very likely have an easy time laughing at this clip. Repeat this process a few times if need be. These three techniques may seem basic on the surface, but can have a huge impact on your life. Experiment with them and see how they can improve on your energy and motivation levels. Thanks for listening to 3 Creative Ways to Raise Your Energy. Three ways to program yourself for your own improvement. For the past 3 years, I have spent most of my time developing my business, and along the way, have had to overcome a number of fears and self-limiting ideas. What I was really doing was reprogramming my mind to think differently. Here are 3 techniques you might want to try that will help you reprogram yourself to a new and improved you. 1. Hang out with an influencer. When I first got started in business, I was struggling to pay the bills and find enough clients to keep me going. Even when I did find clients, I did a terrible job billing for my time, and I was not recognizing my own value as a service provider. I was then lucky enough to meet another business owner who had built a number of successful companies and had already been through all of the tough business lessons that I had yet to be exposed to. Over time, we became friends, and I was able to absorb an incredible amount of information about business, mindset, dealing with clients, social skills, and so on. All of the things that made him so talented at business. The challenge here is that you can't just walk up to someone and ask them to be your friend. When you meet someone who you'd like to learn from, show them that you value their time and bring something of your own to the table. If they feel they can also learn from you and your life experiences, they will be far more willing to hang out with you. 2. Wage a war against the whiny voice in your head. Have you ever had an idea that totally captivated your imagination and inspired you to think about life far beyond the one you're living today? If so, were you also among the majority of people who had that cynical, whiny, negative voice pop up and immediately tell you all the reasons why this new idea could never come true? Instead of falling victim to that defeating voice, try turning the tables. Picture that voice as a vicious enemy trying to steal your life, power, and happiness away from you. Challenge the voice. Question its authenticity. Question its reasoning. Make it powerless against your will. Realize that you have the choice to replace that voice with a more encouraging, faithful, and friendly one. A voice that will consider your goal not only a possibility, but a probability. A voice that does not look externally for validation before taking action, but rather uses self-belief as its driving force. A voice that recognizes that any person who has ever achieved greatness had to do so against similar odds, and that all things are possible to those. 3. Get the competitive edge. When you want to accomplish something new, try setting up a competition against one or more people who want the same thing. This creates two powerful forces. The first is the desire to be triumphant. Imagine the excitement someone must feel when they win a gold medal in the Olympics. They have achieved a personal dream and they get a flood of recognition from friends, family, media, fans, and ultimately their entire country. What person would not love this kind of validation of success? The same kind of triumph can be experienced when you win a competition that you have been involved in, no matter how small it may be. The second, and more powerful force that gets created in competition is the desire to avoid defeat. Most humans instinctively associate any form of loss with pain, and in most cases will do anything necessary to avoid that pain. If you enter some kind of competition that will help drive you towards your goals, this pain avoidance force may be the deciding factor in your own success. Use competitive scenarios to drive you forward, but remember to detach from the outcome. If you happen to lose your competition, don't get down in the dumps. Focus on what positives came out of it, usually a drastic increase in results, and continue moving towards your goals. Thanks for listening to 3 Ways to Program Yourself for Your Own Improvement. Hardships are assets. I have recently started following an up and coming motivational speaker based out of the US named Eric Thomas. Eric has a very inspirational story and is doing some incredible work to help the inner city youth throughout the country. In one of his talks to a group of students, he describes dropping out of high school and spending over 2 years of his life homeless and living in fear on a daily basis. This was a very common theme in the area he grew up in. He then states that period of his life is actually his greatest gift. After feeling the pain of living on the streets, he overcame the odds, completed high school and college, and is now an international speaker working on his PhD. From the moment I heard his story and the way he described his hardships as a gift, my perspective was forever changed. I started thinking about all the times in my life where I had felt overwhelmed or frustrated by my circumstances. Luckily for me, my situation was never as dire as being homeless or living in fear for my safety. My problems were very minor in comparison. Why then was I reacting with the same amount of stress and overwhelm as someone in a much worse position? I realized that I was basically spoiled. I think many of us in this part of the world are. We have been sheltered from so many hardships that it has actually made us soft and in some cases very weak. We should embrace our challenges and move towards those things that we are afraid of. Instead of talking ourselves out of a risky idea, we should focus on the potential benefits of our ideas and lean into them. As a former corporate employee turned business owner, I think about all of the problems I inherited by giving up my salary to go out on my own. I have had times where I didn't know if my business would survive another month. Times where I had to confront a client that was becoming increasingly difficult to work with. Times where I did not get paid thousands of dollars owed to me for work completed, not to mention many other issues. These are among many of the reasons why people talk themselves out of going into business for themselves. The truth is that each one of those hardships has strengthened me. They are assets that I use in my own personal arsenal to keep me motivated and driving forward toward my goals. Every time I conquer a new challenge, I see myself as a bigger person who is now capable of achieving more than ever before. Hardships in life are an asset. Instead of avoiding them, seek them out and face them head on. Thanks for listening to Hardships Are Assets. Recognizing the value of every person. When you take a moment to really listen to another person, hear their story, and connect with them, it can be an amazing experience. The problem in today's world is we are all moving at an extremely rapid pace, and it can be difficult to find time to have a good conversation with someone new. I was recently at a business networking event where there were maybe 50 other business owners and salespeople in the room. As I walked around, I saw a lot of fast paced talking, and most of the conversation was surface level discussion at best. Most people were waiting for their chance to talk at the other person rather than listening and being engaged in the dialogue. Part of the issue was this type of event can be rushed, and that alone can hurt the quality of the conversation. But this was not the first time I had witnessed this, and I began reflecting on the number of times I had done the same. Up until recently, I had been so focused on business and just being productive in general that I was missing out on opportunities all around me. If someone new would cross my path at a coffee shop or at a gym, I would do my best to avoid the person because I was in a rush. In some cases, the person was actually trying to strike up a conversation, but I wanted no part of it. In hindsight, the reason I was doing it was because I was making a snap judgment, usually based on something superficial like, say, the age of the person, that a conversation with this person would be more work than it was worth. A few weeks ago, I was sitting at a coffee shop very early in the morning, tucked away in a corner with my laptop, trying to get some writing done. About 30 minutes after I sat down, an older gentleman, probably in his late 70s, put his bag down in the chair next to me and went up to buy his coffee. Right away, I felt myself getting annoyed and was about to pack up my bag and move to another coffee shop when the man quickly reappeared and asked me what I was working on. For some reason, I changed in that moment and I felt compelled to answer his question and actually use the opportunity to make a new friend. A minute later, I closed my laptop and spent the next hour having a great conversation with this interesting guy. He shared some amazing stories about his travels through Europe and his plans for the future. The conversation totally changed my day and ultimately the way I looked at other people in general. Everyone has a story to tell, and if we spend even a few minutes to take some genuine interest, we are bound to find something amazing in every person we meet. Thanks for listening to Recognizing the Value of Every Person. The Internet as a self-help tool. A large majority of our population waste a lot of time on the Internet. It is a very easy thing to do in this generation of information addiction. I am just as guilty as anyone else for having wasted many valuable hours surfing aimlessly. Since becoming a full-time business owner, I have been introduced to an entire community of people who instead leverage the internet as a tool for both personal and business development. The true power of the net comes from the fact that any person with ideas to share can create their own platform to speak from. Typically, this comes in the form of a personal or business blog, but it can also be done through social networks, online forums, and podcasting. The biggest problem I witness is the lack of follow through and persistence towards personal goals. In general, people have no problem actually setting and planning their goals, but they falter when it comes time to turn the goals into reality. One of the most common causes of this is the lack of accountability. Think about this from the perspective of your own life for a second. Imagine setting a goal to run a marathon. You could set the goal privately and write down on a piece of paper that you intend to complete a marathon in 4 months' time. In this case, you are your only source of accountability. Another option would be to declare your goal publicly to friends, family, colleagues, etc. There is obviously a built-in sense of motivation when you know others are tracking your progress. The anticipated pain of embarrassment may very well be the one driving force that causes you to actually reach your marathon goal. So now, how does the internet help with self-development? When you think of most personal development programs and exercises, pretty much all of the teachings are geared toward behavior modification in one way or another. Behavior change is typically the result of action repetition. Once you have decided on a goal that you would like to achieve, you can easily use the internet as a tool for both activity management and personal accountability. An example is a good friend of mine who is quickly becoming a recognizable figure in the internet marketing arena. He literally uses his blog as a tool for personal and business development. He has a schedule that he follows to the letter. Every single Tuesday and Thursday, he creates a high value piece of content for his readers. As I have followed his blog for the past year, his skill level has definitely continued to rise, as well as the size of his audience. Because his readers expect him to deliver new content twice a week, he's forced to continually grow and adapt his skill set. He literally has a built-in accountability system that forces him to deliver week after week. He also happens to be one of the most successful entrepreneurs I know, and I don't think that is an accident. The good news is you don't have to be a technical wizard in order to leverage the internet as a success tool. There are plenty of free and user-friendly platforms that pretty much anyone can use to build the same kind of system. Here are some ideas. Start a free WordPress or Blogger blog and do a personal 30-day challenge, i.e., write 500 words a day for 30 days to improve your writing skills. Set up a YouTube channel and shoot one video per week of yourself practicing your vocal skills for a music competition. Join an online community and track your personal commitments towards a goal. Have other people hold you accountable in that online community. Create a mailing list on your website and send one valuable lesson or free gift per day to your subscribers. It doesn't really matter what you are doing. The whole point is self-improvement. Self-improvement is all about making a committed decision and then having your actions follow that decision. The internet is a great way to ensure that your actions follow your committed decision and keep you accountable for everything you want to do. Thanks for listening to The Internet as a Self-Help Tool. Need help? Think like a kid. This past year, my wife and I have started sending our two sons to public daycare. The 1-year-old is too young to understand what is going on, so he is always happy to be there. The 3-year-old, on the other hand, has been having a very difficult time in the mornings. As soon as we get in the car, he starts crying, and it gets progressively more intense as we get closer to the daycare. By the time we are in his classroom, he is in a near panic, screaming and drawing intense stares from the other parents and staff. Within seconds of me leaving, he completely calms down and gets absorbed with some fun new activity that he would not have been able to experience at home. Witnessing this really drove home a new realization for me. We all have the ability to experience happiness, or any other positive emotion for that matter, at any time we choose to do so. The advantage with children is that they let go very quickly and have a much easier time living in the moment. I started thinking more about how most adults handle these kind of situations, myself included, and in the majority of cases it takes a much longer time to move from a depressed state to one of positivity and happiness. I can think of many times in my life where I spent an entire day in a negative state, carrying around a grudge about something that happened many hours or sometimes days prior. At the time, I didn't even realize that I had control over the situation. Complete victim mentality. Having spent a number of years working on my own personal development, I now experience far more happy and positive moments than negative ones. But I think it is only human to have times when the doom and gloom creeps in. My new strategy when dealing with these circumstances is to literally think like a 3-year-old. As an example, a few weeks ago I was expecting payment from a client with whom I'd made an arrangement to offer a monthly payment plan. This was something I did more as a favor than a standard policy. When the client ignored my first, then second payment request, I felt myself becoming extremely frustrated. In the past, an event like this might have soured my mood and in turn my productivity for the entire day, if not longer. I used the opportunity to literally picture myself as a 3-year-old, easily moving from one moment of devastation to a brand new moment of fun and opportunity. Instead of picking up a coloring book or a new toy fire truck, I picked up my laptop and began working on an exciting new project that I was involved in. My mood shifted immediately. I then took it up a notch with some inspiring music, and before I knew it, I was feeling amazing and very excited about my day. I have still not been paid by that client, but I'm okay with that now. The new project that I got involved in has already more than paid for the unpaid bill from my deficient client, and I'm having a lot more fun what I'm doing now. Next time you are feeling overwhelmed by negativity, frustration, anger, or depression, try remembering what it was like as a kid when you could experience pure happiness at any moment you chose to do so. Thanks for listening to Need Help? Think Like a Kid. Trading your life. Whether you realize it or not, the way you choose to spend your day is ultimately a trade off. You are literally trading the minutes, hours, and days of your life in exchange for your current activities. Most of us spend 40 and often more hours per week trading the precious moments of our life for our job. Two questions immediately rise to the surface. 1. Do you consciously recognize and appreciate each day of your life with the awareness that none of us know how much time we have left? 2. If so, are you making a fair trade, i.e., are your activities worthy of your life energy? When I first understood this lesson at both an intellectual and emotional level, my honest answer to both of the above questions was no. I was not necessarily taking my life for granted, but I also did not truly appreciate my days. I was devoting my time to a number of things that did not make me happy, and I was avoiding facing my fears. My mindset was, I will deal with it at a better time. Deep down, I knew I was simply avoiding the issue altogether. Specifically, I'm talking about my professional career. Although I was quite successful, had a great salary, great security, excellent benefits, and room to grow in the organization, I did not enjoy the work. I would start my day and look forward for it to end. I did not work with any passion. Worst of all, I was trading my life for this career. Because this was the only profession I knew and spent many years establishing myself, it never actually occurred to me that change was even possible. I simply assumed that I'd have to stick it out and hopefully do well enough financially so that I could retire early and then begin to enjoy my days. Then I got involved in personal development programs. I started to learn more about life and more about the mind. I quickly realized that I had been operating my life following a set of beliefs and paradigms that were not necessarily ideas that I agreed with. I had always assumed that everyone disliked their job and it was just something we all had to go through to, quote, earn our retirement. When I found out that there were many people who loved their work and had found a way to make a living based on their passions, I was naturally very intrigued. I was also wary of the idea because it just sounded too good to be true. As I started to study some of these people and learn about the inspiring lives they were living, I realized a very important distinction between them and myself. Unlike me at the time, they did appreciate the value of each living day, and they also structured their life in such a way that they were trading their days for a purpose worthy of them and their true values. When I compared myself to them, I was trading the days of my life for something that made me unhappy. When I dissected it further, I was choosing this lifestyle because I was too afraid to change. I was afraid to give up the salary and benefits, afraid to give up the position that took so long to attain. afraid to admit to others that I was unhappy, and afraid to decide what I truly wanted out of life. The more I thought about it and the more I studied personal development teachings and success stories, the greater my desire for change became. I started to reprogram my mind so that the pain of remaining status quo was actually more intense than the fear of change. I know many personal growth programs advocate positive thinking, but negative motivators inspire action for all of us. It certainly worked in my case. Not only did this new mindset drive me to find my true passion and true calling in life, it helped me establish a sense of personal freedom that can best be described as liberation. There came a point where my self image literally shifted and I saw myself safely and confidently walking away from the career that I had so desperately held on to for many years. The days of my life were far too important and valuable to be spending them doing something that had no meaning for me. After I resigned from that position, I made a personal commitment to dedicate the rest of my working days doing only that which I love. I now love my work. I look forward to my days. I look forward to new projects and new opportunities. I never think about retirement because I never plan on retiring. When you do what you love, why would you ever want to stop? Thanks very much for listening to Trading Your Life. Visualization is power. Ever since the release of The Secret, there has been a lot of hype around the topic of visualization. Specifically, many people have gained an awareness about the power of visualization and how it can positively or negatively impact the results you experience in your life. This is not a new concept by any means. Visualization has been a practice used by many cultures for many generations. Olympic athletes are now trained in the art of visualization as a means of gaining a competitive advantage in their chosen sport. Unfortunately, I think the way The Secret portrayed the idea of visualization gave people a skewed perspective of how visualization actually works. Too many people assumed that the simple act of thinking about something would automatically cause it to become reality. As any logical thinking person would agree, this is definitely not always the case. The true power of visualization comes from the fact that we all have access to creative thoughts. We can create a new idea in our mind through the simple act of visualization. Using the power of action, we can take an idea that exists in our mind and bring it into reality. The process to do so varies depending on the idea you have conceived. The point is that all creation starts in the mind, and it is up to the originator of that idea to see the result through to completion. The more I have studied the connection between mental and physical reality, the more I have become fascinated by the topic of visualization. A simple example is you can take a room in your home, visualize an entirely new arrangement, and then go to work on bringing your vision into reality. A few hours later, there you have your visualized image into reality. Okay, so it's not the most exciting example in the world, but that same process can be applied to, well, anything. And to me, that is exciting. I have visualized myself doing some amazing things in my lifetime. Some of these things have already come to pass, while many of my larger visions still elude me. The fact that our vision of the goal creates the potential for it to really happen is something for every person to get excited about. Someone visualized humans flying through the sky. People laughed. Now we have been doing it for over a century. Someone visualized sending sound through the air and being able to hear the sound in a remote location. People laughed. Now we have thousands of radio stations. Someone visualized two people having a conversation across the world with no wires. People laughed. I just got off a Skype call with someone over 1,000 miles away. I recently met somebody with their very own interesting visualization experience that happened about 2 years ago. This person was at a personal development seminar, and the speaker was talking about the power of visualization. He was telling all kinds of exciting stories about people who had used various visualization techniques to create some amazing results in their lives. Towards the end of his talk, the speaker walked the audience through a guided visualization exercise. In the exercise, he had the audience close their eyes and clearly visualize a result they would like to create. Having tried and failed at this kind of experiment in the past, my friend was somewhat reluctant but decided to suspend any disbelief and just try it out. For his visualization, he pictured his hand raising in front of his face and seeing his wedding band on his ring finger. He had lost the ring 3 months earlier on a blustery winter day and had no idea where it might have fallen. The exercise forced him to hold the vision of the ring on his finger for at least 2 minutes, although he thinks it was even longer than that. The exercise ended and he continued on with the presentation. After that, he dropped the whole thing from his mind and went on with his day. Later that evening, his wife answered the phone and there was a call from his sister-in-law. Her neighbor had found a gold wedding ring on their lawn among a pile of melting snow. She knew the ring had been missing, so she called them right away to let them know it had been found. The ring must have fallen off in the driveway and been shot across the yard with a snowblower, only to land on the neighbor's yard. What are the chances that they discovered the ring right around the same time he visualized it? Yes, it is mysterious, and it also could be a coincidence. I guess you just have to ask yourself what you believe in. Or more importantly, try visualization out and see how it works for you. Perhaps you will create some things that will amaze and astound you in your own life. Thanks for listening to Visualization is Power. When being arrogant is a good thing. I have always been a big believer in modesty and keeping an even keel emotionally, whether you are experiencing great success or painful failure. Many people would agree that a modest person has an inner confidence that does not need to be flaunted, a sign of a strong character. At the same time, I have seen people who have had their desire to remain modest actually hurt their personal success. In certain cases, the modest person was so afraid of looking arrogant or egotistical that they suddenly became blind to their own talents and achievements. This kind of thinking can obviously have long-term negative impacts on a person's confidence. As a coach, I spend a lot of time studying the lives of successful people from many different walks of life. There are a handful of characteristics that seem to be common among all of these people. As you would expect, self-confidence is often the most obvious character strength that they possess. I have had the opportunity to meet with a number of successful people to get a first-hand look into the way they think and the way they carry themselves. Without fail, every single person I spoke with was very aware of their own talents and achievements, and they knew they were the best at what they did. At the same time, they did not have any problem at all telling me about their credentials and doing so from a very proud perspective. To an outside observer, that might come across as arrogant and labeled as a negative. The definition of the word arrogant is having or showing an exaggerated opinion of one's own importance, merit, ability, etc. Based strictly on the definition, the successful person who talks highly of their accomplishments could be labeled as arrogant, but I want to point out an important distinction around flaunting their accomplishments to the entire world. But when someone like me came along and asked them, they were more than happy to share. This means that they kept thoughts of personal success at the forefront of their mind and used those thoughts to their advantage to build confidence and self-esteem. The overly modest person was so worried about coming across as arrogant that they literally convinced themselves they were less capable than they actually were, a total hit to their self-esteem. If you are struggling with your own confidence and self-worth, maybe it is time to err on the side of being arrogant. Build yourself up from the inside out so that you recognize your strengths, talents, and achievements and begin sharing them with the world. Thanks for listening to When Being Arrogant is a Good Thing. When the odds are stacked against you. Staying positive and goal-oriented is very easy to do when the going is good. The true winners in life are the people who can persist when times are tough and it seems the whole world is totally against them. The real question is, how do you keep moving forward when the odds seem to be stacked up against you? The first thing to realize when you are in this kind of situation is that every person, who has ever accomplished something of significance was faced with a similar situation. This is a guarantee. The wealthy business person was broke and inexperienced at some point. The Olympic gold medal winner was slow and clumsy in the beginning. The stage performer was in a low budget show forgetting her lines. Some people may face greater hardships than others, but no one is immune to it. And this is really the key to this lesson. If you are in a situation right now where it seems like quitting or defeat are your only options, here are some ideas you can use to drive yourself forward and keep going. 1. Go to school on your leaders. No matter what you are trying to achieve, there is someone in the world who has likely done it before. Success leaves clues, so your job is to become the investigator. Find out what made these other people successful. More importantly, learn about their hardships and how they triumphed when the odds were stacked against them. Then, realize that you have the exact same abilities as that other person, providing you are willing to do the same things that other person did. 2. Put it in perspective. A great example is someone starting out in business for themselves. Most businesses experience a pretty rocky road in the first few years. This also happens to be the period of time when many business owners ultimately give up. But when you put it in perspective, the hardships you are facing at the start of your venture likely pale in comparison to people with real challenges. There are people struggling with addiction, physical handicap, family breakup, and so on. There are people in these situations who maintain a positive outlook and still make the best of their life. If they can do it with their severe problems, you can do it with relatively minor problems. 3. Ask, ask, ask. There is an old saying, ask and it shall be given. The saying contains a powerful truth. People who have become good at asking for what they want and need in life tend to get more help from others. When the odds are stacked against you, regardless of what you're trying to accomplish, there are people out there who will be willing to help if you ask them. If you are in need of help with money, resources, support, exposure, or anything else, ask. Ask a lot of people. Ask with conviction. Ask with passion. If you ask enough people, you will find the support. The key thing to remember in this whole discussion is that you are an achiever. If at any point in your life the odds are stacked against you and success seems like a distant dream, you are doing something right. This is a sign of your courage, determination, and persistence. And in that sense, you are already successful. Thanks for listening to When the Odds Are Stacked Against You.